Want to expand the reach of your content? Start a podcast. Feature industry experts on your show and leverage the influence and reach of your guests to grow your brand. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined by my good buddy, James Carberry, here at Sweetfish. This is another episode in our Behind the Curtain series. James, how you doing today, man?
I am awesome, man. So I just got back from inbound yesterday, late last night. Was actually on a flight with Jennifer Garner, one of the speakers, and obviously, wildly famous actress. But saw her at Wahlburger. She ordered like right behind me at Wahlburger. So I was like posting about it on Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh, Jennifer Garner's eating Wahlburger right in front of me. And then I go back to my gate and she's getting on my flight. I was like, oh my gosh, she's sitting 8 rows in front of me on my flight back to Orlando. It was awesome. So yeah, I'm still riding the high of my almost Jennifer Garner experience because I didn't quite have the guts to go up and talk to her.
I was going to say, you're almost encounter. You've been doing a lot of traveling, so that's somewhat of a highlight, at least. That's awesome, man. Well, speaking of your trip to Inbound, you and I were talking a little bit offline during Gaetano's presentation at Inbound in one of the sessions. There was a question posed and a little bit of discussion on quantity of content for people who aren't themselves a media company, for whether you're a SaaS company, a tech company, a services company, an agency. What is the role of quality and quantity in the amount of content that you put out? So do you want to give folks a little bit of context into the discussion there, and then we can dive into the...
Yeah, so we were there filming Gaetano's session. Gaetano's a co-host of B2B Growth, and we had a chance to go up to Boston to record his session. And at the end of his session, he was taking questions from folks in the crowd, and somebody asked, they said, hey, Gaetano, you've just shared this awesome case study on how you guys grew Sales Hacker by 426% and led to the company getting acquired. But you guys are a media company, so you kind of have an excuse to produce all this content that ended up driving all this traffic. We're just a B2B SaaS company. If we produce that much content, wouldn't our customers, wouldn't our prospects just be like, whoa, hold on, like this is way too much content. You can't do this. So he's basically saying, because you're a media company, you have permission to create a lot of content. And I just fundamentally disagree with that statement. Now, I don't know if this guy actually believed that. It came across as though he was kind of setting Gaetano up to make a point that I hear Gary Vee talk about a lot, which is regardless of what industry you're in, whether you're selling insurance or you are a plumber, or you are selling B2B SaaS, you should think of yourselves as a media company first and whatever you do second. So we're trying to do this with this show, with B2B Growth. We have a series on the show called Why Podcasts Work, but 95% of our content, probably 98% of our content, honestly, it has nothing to do with B2B podcasting, which is our business and what we sell. It has to do with like growth and marketing and things that our buyers are interested in. And so, yes, we have media in our title, but we're, for the longest time, up until we've started doing these collective shows and truly are becoming a media company, owning the content ourselves, we were a service provider, but we were acting like a media company. We named our show B2B Growth, not the B2B Podcasting Show or not the Sweet Fish Show, because we want to provide tangible value to the people consuming this content. And I think if you are a SaaS company listening to this, think about what type of content is valuable to your buyer persona. Are you selling to attorneys? Are you selling to small business owners? Are you selling to doctors? Really dissect that buyer persona and become a media company that serves that specific persona. And when you do that, I don't think you can create too much content. I know a lot of people push back on that and say, oh, no, you're going to sacrifice quality when you put out volume. But I just don't think that's the case. I think there are lots of proven frameworks out there, like what we're doing with content-based networking, where you can just interview your ideal buyers about their challenges, the things they're learning, how they're growing. And just like this show is super valuable to a lot of marketers, because we interview marketers every day, talking B2B marketers, talking about how they're learning, what they're growing, what they're experimenting with. In the same way, that can work across any industry. And so we're seeing that play out with, the industry and manufacturing podcast, the B2B sales show, the cybersecurity podcast that we're about to launch, crafting culture. Like, this doesn't just work in our space, it works across the board. But I think it takes a fundamental shift in your mindset to say, we no longer are a SaaS company first. We are a media company first. We put out incredible content that serves our audience. Then we're a SaaS company. And that's obviously something that I didn't come up with myself. That's something Gary Vee preaches all the time. But I think that mindset is what's allowed us to do content the way that we do it here at Sweetfish and see the results that we're seeing because of it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There are two things that I think of in what you were just saying. They both come from stuff that I've heard from Gary Vee here recently. One is, volume helps you iterate on the quality that much faster, right? Yeah. If you're only, we're wringing our hands and we're thinking about, we're going to launch a podcast, it's got to be perfect, or we're doing a video series, it's just got to be perfect. Then who is determining what's quality in that scenario? It's you and your team, because that's the only place that you have to give feedback on, because you're spending so much time debating over the quality. And so it's only subjective. And so what I hear Gary talking about a lot is listening to the market. Well, you can't listen to the market and hear what they say, this is quality to me, unless you're putting out quantity. And so if you do it right, obviously there's ways to do quantity without quality. And that's not what we're saying to do. But if you do quantity, then you can have that feedback loop to increase the quality, and not just increase, quality subjectively that's going to win you advertising awards or marketing accolades or a pat on the back from your internal creative team, but a pat on the back from your customers saying, hey, we want more of that. And now you can go in that direction and follow the market. The other thing I'm thinking about is, I was listening, I think it was one of the episodes on the Gary Vee audio experience where it's inside the 4Ds sessions. And I absolutely love those episodes, man, because the Q&A that he gives are usually where the tactical advice comes, right? Because if you listen to someone who puts out as much content as Gary, you know what his 5 big ideas are, those sorts of things that he's always. And I think it was, I might be getting the specifics wrong, but I think you can still get the idea here. I think it was a local attorney, and they realized that, hey, if we build relationships with first responders, firefighters, paramedics, those sorts of folks, then we'll get the referral business of the folks that we're trying to reach in our local law practice. Yeah. And so this idea of being a media company doesn't have to be do more podcast episodes or do more blog posts, like think outside the box. And Gary was like, well, I bet the firefighters have an annual softball league. What if you became the one who filmed that and put it on Facebook Live and became the sponsor of that event,
or created something like the Thanksgiving Day football game, firefighters versus police officers. So I loved your point there. Don't necessarily think about media in just the traditional sense of, the podcast or blog post, or, think outside the box, like creating your own event and then doing media around that event that you create. I thought that was brilliant when I heard it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just go to where they are. Think of, and it comes to understanding your buyers, not just in why do they buy our product and service, but what does their day look like? What traditions do they have? What are some of the things that where you could put yourself into their world, or where you could, put yourself into their world and host the party, as Gary Vee talks about, like put yourself in their world, host the party, and now you have people coming to you and you build those relationships and you create content that they actually care about that has nothing to do with your product or service. And so I think being a media company can mean a lot more things than what people initially think on it.
Yeah, totally. As much as Gary says it, I'm sure there are folks listening to this that don't consume nearly as much Gary as you and I do. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to use our platform to beat this over people's heads that you are not whatever you think you do. If you want to be effective in marketing in a 2019 environment, you are a media company first. Then you are whatever it is that you do. And I think that shift in your mindset is going to unlock a lot of really good things.
Absolutely, man. Well, I think this has been a great conversation. I love those specific examples. And like we said, it doesn't matter if you're, I think I heard Gary say, I don't care if you're a 75-year-old attorney, you should be experimenting with TikTok right now. So think outside of the box. And hopefully this has given folks a few ways to potentially do that and go from there. So James and I would love for folks to connect with us. Obviously, we're very active on LinkedIn. You can look us up there. We're also have been trying to up our game on Instagram lately, especially if you like these episodes where we're sharing a little bit more behind the curtain here at Sweetfish, what we're doing, how we're building our company, what we're thinking about for us and with the marketers that we're talking to on a regular basis. Check us out. Give us a follow there. James is simply at James Carberry on Instagram. I'm at I am Logan Lyles. That's the only social media platform. I'm not at Logan Lyles, and it's really bugging me. But anyway, that's where you can find us. James, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you unpacking this conversation that you heard take place at Inbounding.
Excited for the next one.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.